In this video, I would like to talk about some of my favourite books, and they're all going to be from classic literature, and the reason that they're my favourites is because they have stuck with me. I didn't enjoy them simply while I was reading and then the experience was finished, or my connection with the book was finished, but they've really lingered in my mind and made me think and ask questions of myself, of the world, and of the future. And that's really how I demarcate what a good book is. Does it stay with me beyond just the experience of reading it? And am I thinking about it and attaching it to other books that I read once I finished it? The first book is The Idiot by Dostoevsky, and there's a quote in it in particular that I enjoy, and it's said to the main character, Prince Mishkin. And someone says to him, "I heard you say that beauty will save the world," and then they laugh at him. And on the surface it does seem like a fairly banal comment. It doesn't seem the most sensible one, after all. The prince is otherwise known as the idiot. But it's not referring to just an aesthetic beauty. It's referring, I think, to the beauty that inspires awe, and that makes us want to be better, that makes us want to be the best version of ourselves. Although that is quite trite, but true nevertheless, that the beauty that inspires, that makes us reflect, that holds a mirror up to ourselves, not the superficial beauty that has no substance behind it, because no, that's not the beauty that will save the world, but to hold a mirror up to ourselves, to see what beauty can be, to have an idea of the ideal, and that we should be improving ourselves. Yes, I do think that that would save the world. I think that we were all moving in a direction where we were trying to make ourselves better, the lives of those around us better, and by extension, society and the world as a whole. Is there any reason that it couldn't save the world? And is it not worth at least trying? The second book is OBLOMOV by Ivan Goncharov, and this is one of my favourite books for the complete opposite reason as to The Idiot, or seemingly the opposite reason, because while The Idiot and the idea of beauty holds up an ideal and what we should be striving towards, OBLOMOV for me presents a darkness and what I should be moving away from. It's a man who is perfectly happy to be idle, to do nothing, to let the world pass him by, and that is my primary vice, I suppose, the will to idleness. And while it's important to have something that we're chasing and something that we want to become, an ideal, I think it's equally important to have our version of hell, if you will, and to recognise that if we didn't make the steps to work towards our ideal, we wouldn't just stay the same, as stasis is largely impossible with a world that is constantly changing and dynamic. We would regress, and we would become I would become what OBLOMOV presents. And that's why it's one of my favourite books, because they both do really. The Idiot and OBLOMOV, they ask me to consider who I am and consider what I want to be and become, and the options that are in front of me if I do not. The third book is Les Miserables by Victor Hugo, and the question this asks is about morality, is about doing good versus doing evil. And that really comes through the character of Jean Valjean, who is the main character of the book. And we constantly see these internal struggles that he has to do the right thing, to decide which path he should take. And increasingly throughout the book, we see him tend towards good. But the other change that happens throughout the book is that more people are integrated into his life. Previously, at the very start, he is a lone wanderer. He is no one who he is attached to, and thus he is no one that he needs to please or improve because of. And he also is no one that he needs to worry about hurting. He can do whatever he wants. However, as time goes on, as he meets more people, interacts with them, he has this burden of responsibility to others. And we see that makes a dramatic shift in his moral compass, let's say. And so the question or the idea here really is, one, that there are good choices that we can make. There are choices that will improve our lives, improve the lives of those around us. And then there are choices which will make everything worse. And then the other idea attached to that is that the people and the lives that we share can pull us more towards good, can make us make better choices. And that while there might be an idea that we should improve our own lives first, and then we're not ready to commit or get into a relationship or have responsibility for others until we've made ourselves the best version of ourselves, maybe we're putting the cart before the horse and we've got it completely the wrong way around. It's the relationships that we have with other people that force us into that change, that force us to be better. The idea of growing together with someone in a relationship, rather than becoming two perfect specimens that then come together, which never happens, because one person to become perfect, no chance. Two people, impossible. But together, growing together, maybe an idea of perfection can be achieved. And attached to that, and the idea of people improving your life, is the Count of Monte Cristo. And we see this because the initial fall leads to total loss of any sanity within the Count, and a decline down a dark path. But then the redemption is through love. It's from Hayley, from Mercedes, from him helping the Morels. We see the good side to the Count, and he is saved because of his relationship with people. And he learns that he can make better choices and leave this God complex behind because he grounds himself within others. He's not above them, he's an equal to them. And they need him as much as he needs them. And it's a beautiful idea within those two pieces of 19th century French literature. The other aspect that the Count of Monte Cristo takes by Alexandre Dumas is the origin of judgment. And this is a much more abstract idea, which are the ones which tend to attract me, although I do like these more grounded ideas and actionable ideas in terms of finding relationships or connections with other people. However, this one, in terms of the origin of justice that the Count of Monte Cristo puts forward, is very relevant to the time period, particularly with Napoleon and post-Enlightenment, as we see the loss of religion. So there is no authority from above, but it has now been delegated, let's say, to each individual, or more practically, a minority of the population, as it tends to be. So the question is whether there is a universal morality and justice, or whether it is purely down to the individual. The Count wants to be Providence, but really he wants a title and just wants to assume his own ends, not one that is universal. And we see that he can't handle that. He can't handle the weight of judgment. The next book is The Old Man and the Sea by Ernest Hemingway, and it's a short book, less than 100 pages, but it's also probably the best fictionalization of the ideas of Stoicism that's out there. So if you don't want to read Seneca, if you don't want to read Marcus Aurelius or any other Stoic philosopher, ancient or modern, then I think The Old Man and the Sea is a great place to enter into it. It's packaged within the narrative, but it's clearly the tenets of Stoicism that are present within The Old Man. It's a book about resilience and fortitude, also relationships, the one that the old man has with the young boy, and then it's constantly in service of the other, not for selfish ends, which is another important lesson. But in regards to the resilience and the fortitude, it's just that it can always get better, and we can always make it worse. But if we persist, if we keep going, if we keep doing what we know to be right, then it can get better. But if we throw in the towel, if we start to complain and look at other areas to throw our anger, then we can certainly make it worse. There's no limit to the extent that we can do that. And where it all can decline to is William Golding's The Lord of the Flies, which is the next book on our list. And we can see the depths that humanity can fall to if we are given unlimited freedom, if we no longer care for making things better, but just want to pursue our own wants, and if we forget about the relationship that we have with others. But there's another question that it raises towards the end of the novel, which is that authority and order is to be desired. We've seen what unlimited freedom can do, so now we bring in order, and we hope to rectify the situation. And we don't know where it goes following that. It seems to have come to an end, the atrocities that are committed on the island. But I just can't wrangle with that. The idea that order or total authority is to be desired, as that is what seemed to be represented at the end of the novel, and also many depictions, where it's just focused on to a foot stepping onto the beach. And that really is that imagery is very authoritative and very, squashing things out, reminiscent of the early 20th century or the mid 20th century. And so that is the question. Where does the line fall between unlimited freedom and unlimited order? The unlimited freedom is represented in the book. The unlimited order is represented during the 20th century. And where does the line fall between that? What is the optimal amount of freedom and order for an individual, for society? Who knows? An interesting book, and one that I don't think there ever is an answer to. It's very much dependent on the time, on the culture, and on the individuals. And the final book is The Little Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. And this really comes back to the idea of beauty that we had with The Idiot. It comes back to the idea of connections that were in The Count of Monte Cristo and Les Miserables. And it's beautiful in that sense, and in and of itself. Not just the messages it's putting forward, but his two comments on relationships that I really enjoy. And one is that the essential isn't visible to the eyes, but it's only visible to the heart. And the second is that it's the time that we have spent with others that make them special to us, that make them dear. And I think that those are two very important messages that we shouldn't forget, And the second is going back also to the idea of growing together. But the fact that there is no perfection out there just waiting for us. There is no the one who will see and that's it, taken away with it. But the fact that it is a time that we dedicate to them. It's a time that we choose to spend with them, that make them special. It's those memories, the connections that we develop and that we forged together and by ourselves that make it so important. So we shouldn't just be looking for perfection and not being interested in anything else, but we should be understanding of our own responsibility in the path to perfection, the never-ending path. And the second aspect, or the first quote, that the essential is invisible to the eyes, is just a warning against materialism, and to move away from that and to appreciate the beauty that we can't see, the beauty in the ideal, the beauty that grabs us, but we don't know why. And yet it is something, it is a spark, and we should pursue it. We shouldn't just ignore it because we can't see it. To have faith, to believe, all of those ideas, ancient ideas. And maybe they're not worth discarding just yet. See you in the next one.